Well, I will make a brief presentation about what is the project with which we are contributing to this meeting, the GLAMOURS project, the Green Lifestyles, Alternative Models and Upscaling Regional Sustainability that we are carrying out from the beginning of last year, 2014. This is a project whose general objectives are to explore the determinants of lifestyles and explore the complex interaction among economic, social, cultural, political, and technological factors that influence the sustainable lifestyles and transformations to a green economy. A second objective has to do with the transition models and with the fact of developing and evaluating comprehensive models of lifestyle change in key sustainability domains, that I will comment very quickly later, and evaluating in terms of economic and environmental effects. And finally, provide recommendations on best governance designs and policy mixes for a sufficiently fast-paced transition. What are the research questions of this project? Well, as I said, we try to explore the factors influencing sustainable lifestyles and see how they interact, influencing patterns of time use and consumption decisions related to them. Time use will be a central concept in the course of our research. And how does the time use, influence our lifestyles and associated consumption, and what kind of changes in patterns of time use would be necessary in order to achieve transition to a sustainable lifestyles? What types of rebound effects are likely if time use patterns change, and how can we account for them or counteract them in a timely manner? What positive and negative spillover effects are there between temporal, spatial, and material components of lifestyles? Or is environmental sustainable growth feasible on a world scale at a sufficiently fast speed? If so, under what conditions? What kind of policies and governance structures are needed to make this possible? What alternative systems of consumption and production need to be implemented for this to be possible? Can we identify tipping points or thresholds at which certain lifestyles become sustainable? What are the possibilities of replicating a particular ideal lifestyles throughout the population and across different populations countries? How do we, as European society in a global context, come to know what is we have to do to transition to sustainable green economies and lifestyles? Well, are questions that we are trying to give a response, to give an answer in the context of this project, trying to develop theory models and evidence of key processes of transitions to sustainable lifestyles and green economy, and involving many different specialists coming from the academia, policy experts, economists, industrial ecologists, social psychologists, agent-based modelers, working in an inter- and transdisciplinary way. The steps in GLAMOURS are trying to integrate this theory on the complex relationships between determinants of lifestyles and lifestyle change, quantifying relationships and developing models of lifestyle change, and testing these models of transition through empirical research and simulation approaches, micro and macroeconomic models, as well as an agent-based model. So three kind of modeling we are conducting just now from the microeconomy point of view, with the macroeconomy point of view, and also from the agent-based models. The phases of the research that we are developing under an empirical basis have to do with the determinants of lifestyle patterns by conducting empirical research in 7 diverse European regions that I comment quickly now, on alternative sustainable lifestyles initiatives and systems of consumption production across the regions, tending to motivations, development over time, and prospects for upscaling. And we are also, in a second phase, we are testing alternative lifestyle trajectories and systems of production and consumption for macroeconomic effects in order to develop robust recommendations for upscaling at the policy level. These are the 7 regions we have under study. with specific initiatives in each of them. And one important part of our project is that we have been engaging policymakers and stakeholders in a series of workshops that we are carrying out in the different regions, but also in Brussels, trying to involve the European level. With a knowledge co-production mindset. No? This is really important. Well, I have 5 minutes more. So GLAMOURS is evaluating the context the project creates to understand how citizens, researchers, stakeholder organizations, and policymakers come to know what they need to do to bring about individually, socially, environmentally, and economically sustainable living. We have created a context in which knowledge is the result of interaction, and we are evaluating this process as well through holding back casting workshops with the stakeholders and members of low-carbon initiatives, as I said, arranging seminars with European policymakers, as I also said, I'm repeating myself, and attending meetings in the case study areas that are organized by relevant organizations themselves. We have recently met more than 24 initiatives in a case study interchange in the city of Timișoara in Romania, with a very productive results of these interactions that we will try to implement in our list of recommendations or in the support of the empirical results that we will obtain with the survey study that we are now conducting. This is the consortium formed by different researchers. Some of them are here today, from the University of Bath, from the Technological University of Trondheim in Norway, from the Kelmoth Institute in Germany, the James Hutton Institute, Romatry University, the Technological University of Delft, Timișoara, Magdeburg in Germany, Tilburg in the Netherlands as well, and Seri in Austria. This is a very exciting and very complementary project of many of the projects that are represented here, and we hope that all these objectives and results that we are obtaining, that will be explained more deeper by my colleague Adina Dumitru. We hope that we produce the necessary information for implementing the mutual need of cooperation in future platforms that we can that can emerge from these kind of meetings, which is one of the objectives of the European Commission, is put all this work together, as I said in my introduction talk. So thank you very much. If you want to make some question from this introductory talk to the project, if not, well, we can discuss along today or along tomorrow. Thank you very much. Any question?
What we didn't say at the beginning is we will allow for one question, maximum two, if they're very short, for the project overviews, and then for the papers there will be 5 minutes of questions, okay? Because we want to go discussing. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. You placed a very interesting question there. What type of rebound effects are likely and how to counteract them? I think that's a very interesting question to raise, also because it speaks directly to the theories of change topic we are addressing here. I wondered whether you could give some examples of rebounds as you have seen them in lifestyle change, and what would be the propagating mechanisms then? Because my idea is that rebound effects are often talked about quite casually, but not that thoroughly theorized yet. My colleague Grégoire Wellenborn, he just defended his PhD on it a week ago. Also actually establishing that there is a lot of mysteries around these rebound effects still. Whilst I would say maybe they're not the unfortunate exceptions, but they should rather be integral parts of our theories of change.
Small question.
Yeah. That was my question. Thank you.
Well, we have two approaches for approaching the study of rebound effects and spillover effects, which are very interesting, as you say, for the purpose of our project as well. And we have two ways of approaching this problem. One is through the survey that we are carrying out at this moment, where we introduce different variables related to change in aspects both of leisure and work time, and both of and also in different contexts of the life, no? Considering material variables related to the house, related to mobility, related to consumption, and we also will introduce we will introduce our theoretical hypothesis regarding the possible chained changes that can be defined as rebound effects or as spillover effects into a model of social simulation that we will produce using the agent-based modeling, and trying to test if the theory works in the context of the social simulation using agent-based modeling. Social psychologists usually are accustomed to use statistical models, no? But what we have found in the literature and what we have found in our own research is that statistical models are failing in the fact that they are explaining a very low variance of the possible relations of these effects and produce it for what dimensions, no? In the sense of what is producing an effect when what you are measuring is interacting with another predictors. And this, when you use regression models, for example, or when you use structural equation models, what you can find if you are trying to measure these effects is that the variance and the correlations are so low, no, that it's very difficult to maintain a statistical model as a basis of the explanation of the theory. So this is because we try to test the statistical model and the equations that we are trying to formally represent in a social simulation model, and this will be done we have some preliminary results, I hope, for our next meeting in Bath, no? Next 7th to 9th of October. And I don't know if Adina want to complement something more about these rebound effects.
Just briefly. I think you're right. So I think there's a problem with the conceptualization of rebound and spillover effects, which are sometimes also used interchangeably. The way we look at it more specifically is we look at 3 different dimensions. So first of all, we look at rebound effects in terms of income. So when you have this issue of changing patterns of consumption, for example, from one domain to another, and then normally less budget also goes, less expenditure goes into one category, then what happens with the expenditure that's left? And really what industrial ecologists are finding once and again is the fact that income is the biggest predictor of environmental footprint above all. So the question then becomes, what is the policies? So what are the types of policies that we want to have? Reducing income, putting a limit to income. This is something that would not be very popular. So the question is, how do you deal with the rebound effect in a way that income is spent in other things? That's one. The other thing is related to these patterns of time use. So what do you do when people switch patterns of time use, and what happens to the energy intensity of activities? So that's another one which is important. What's the trade-off between those? Because it appears people are starting to save time in certain activities, but they get more energy intensive over time. So how do you deal with that? And the spillover effect. So we look more at the psychological dynamics
And psychology, I think, is a bit better at explaining negative spillovers. So why? Because you're doing something positive for the environment, then you're more likely to do less positive things. And there's lots of like psychological mechanisms that explain that, like moral licensing. You know, you feel you've done your part. Things like reciprocity rules, equal share with others, equity. So there's lots of mechanisms that are interesting in explaining how that happens. Yeah.
Thank you, Adina.